childcare out of 3 campuses to a lot of children and families, and we're struggling, so we really do need some help.
Okay, and I have started the recording now, so we've got JC from. You're muted. Sorry, this is always awkward. JC's from the Quinte Humane Society.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. There you go. Okay, from the Quinte Humane Society. Yes, and I'm responsible for the capital campaign and building the new shelter for the organization.
And we have Kim Egan.
Mm-hmm.
Good morning. Sorry, Jill. Kim Egan from GH Manufacturing. I'm the Executive Vice President and CFO, and we have been throughout the pandemic considered an essential business, both from the ministry, but also from our customers. So happy to join the call. Thanks for arranging it, Jill.
Okay, and I'll just let Todd know I see his iPhone popped up. So we're just doing a quick introduction so you'll know who's here. And I mentioned, and thank you for joining us by phone. David mentioned that you're just coming back from an announcement. And I have a list of things that we'll probably present to you, but I'll also follow that up with email so you don't have to worry about taking notes. Anyway, now I would like to say we've got Lisa Kuipers.
From the Trenton DBIA. We have 150 members in downtown Trenton, and I represent them with marketing, and we look after the beautification of downtown Trenton.
Okay, and Lori Dennis.
Hi, Lori Dennis. I'm Vice President of Finance at Trenton Cold Storage, and like Kim, we've been an essential service, so we shifted the people home that we could shift home, but most of our staff is working in the plants, and glad to be here. Thanks for setting it up, Jill.
Thank you. Maxine Holland.
I apologize. What was the question?
You can introduce yourself.
Oh, okay. My name's Maxine Holland, and I'm a PSW, and I own Preferred Personal Care, and we do home care from, well, maybe soon it'll be Kingston too, but Prince Edward County, Quinte West, and Hastings County. And I'm just celebrating, just surpassed my first year in business and hired my first 6 staff this month. 4 staff last month, 2 more this month.
That's great, thank you. Peter Coy.
Yeah, good morning. I'm Peter Coy. I'm president of Prodime. We're a local Zoho partner, which means we provide virtual software systems, can be run from anywhere, to all kind of sizes of business, distributors, people are just about in every kind of business you can think of. We've been busy.
That's good to hear. Okay, I've got Peter Kempenaar.
Can you hear me there?
Yes.
Yeah, Peter Kempenaar. I'm with Task Force Engineering. I'm also first vice president with the Belleville Chamber of Commerce and chairman of the Government Affairs Committee. And yeah, very interested to hear what everyone has to say. And we have a Government Affairs meeting tomorrow morning, so it'll be good information to have for that meeting as well. So, thank you.
And I think Scott Rudvutz is our last, other than our chamber representatives. Scott?
Sure, I'm Scott Rudvutz. I'm the chairman of the Quinte Manufacturing Association. I'm also the VP of operations of Domtech, a local manufacturer in Trenton. And I guess my comment would be, ever since March, I feel like my full-time job is managing employee panics around COVID.
Okay, great. And so, Todd, before you got on, Sherry Barker had introduced herself. Sherry, go ahead and do it again because Todd's here now.
Hello, Todd. Sherry Barker from Parkhurst Transportation, school bus operator, covering our area.
All right, so we also have Leslie Lavender and Suzanne Andrews, and I'm going to let them kind of jump in a little bit later, but I think you're very familiar with who they are. And honestly, Minister Smith, it's our pleasure to have you join us today. On behalf of the City of Belleville, who's supporting and sponsoring this particular event, with our In Conversation series as part of Small Business Week. So I'm going to give it to you for a moment. And if you want to just give us an outline of where you see things at right now, what you could maybe predict for the future. I know that's asking a lot, but maybe you have some great news for us. So I'm going to mute myself and then let you have a few minutes here.
Okay, thanks, Jill, and good morning, everybody. It's been an exciting morning in the city of Belleville. I'm a little bit late jumping on just because we were at the announcement of the new location for the Quinte exhibition, which will be moving from the corner of Sydney and Bridge in Belleville out to near the Black Diamond Cheese Plant, so just off Highway 37, north of the 401. And they'll be building a new building there for horse shows and for all the great things that happen at the Quinte Fair, the Belleville Fair, and all of this is going to be happening over the next year or so. And they hope to have the Quinte X back by the summer/fall of 2022. So hopefully COVID is a thing of the past by then, and we can move on. But you know, while COVID-19 has been happening, there certainly have been some silver linings as a result of COVID-19. It hasn't all been doom and gloom. Certainly there has been some of that as well, but there have been a lot of programs and exciting announcements that have been made during this time. So I'm real happy to have this audience with you. I know most of you, or if not all of you, on the line here for this event, and it's unfortunate that we're not going to be able to get together for the big gala and handing out the awards that we would normally do tomorrow night, I believe. But we will be doing it virtually, like we're doing a lot of things these days. So what I would start with is, you know, seeing our businesses grow and thrive has certainly been a priority for me since I was first elected at Queen's Park, and that was 9 years ago now. And having Ontario companies at every stage of our supply chains not only ensures that the goods and services that we need and want are there, it also provides a heck of a lot more than that, as most of you know. When you succeed, there are jobs for people to support themselves and reinvest in our economy. And when everybody can prosper and contribute, then we're in a position to ask less and deliver more in government. In my current role as Minister of Children, Community and Social Services, what we're trying to do is make sure that we're linking folks to jobs as quickly as possible. And I know many of you out there, and certainly Scott would know this from the Quinte Manufacturers Association, are in need of people to fill jobs. And I know Kim Egan is on the line there too, and she's probably nodding as well. What we're trying to do is change the Employment Ontario offices in the province to make sure that we're linking people to jobs that are available. And as the Premier and I traveled the province in my role as Economic Development, Trade and Job Creation Minister, one of the things that we heard over and over, no matter where we were in the province, was that we have all these jobs that we can't find people to fill, but yet we know, and I certainly know that now, being the minister responsible for social services, there are 1 million people on the Ontario Works and on the ODSP rolls. Now, many of them on ODSP in particular can't work, but there are many others who can and are willing to work. We just have to make sure that we're providing them with the supports that they need to get them into the workplace and help fill some of those jobs that you have. The pandemic that hit in March affected the good thing that we actually had going. When I was Minister of Economic Development, we were seeing steady growth month after month in increasing job numbers. And obviously that halted for a time as we took action in the province. It's something that I never in my wildest nightmares thought that we would have to do was shut down the workforce. Many of you on the line were deemed essential, as you've already outlined, but we did have to close down a lot of businesses, which is something that I never ever thought I would have to do or be a part of, but it was all in the name of keeping people safe from this unknown virus at the time. And you know, we tried to offset those losses with tax and fee deferrals at the provincial level. We've been working with our federal partners in the federal government to target investments in areas like the rent relief program, which has worked for a lot of people, but not everybody. Wage subsidies and those types of things, encouraging businesses to shift to meet the need for things many of us hadn't really ever given much thought to in the past, like creating personal protective equipment. I had never heard the term PPE until COVID-19 hit, and here we were, switching over our lines at distilleries to create hand sanitizer, and our lines from manufacturing auto parts to making ventilators, and the lines at places like P&G to create the N95 masks and other equipment that we needed during the pandemic. So, some of you have been a part of that, and we appreciate the work that you've done. Thankfully, you've collectively weathered the storm, and the job numbers have started to come back, and we're hearing that your innovation is working to, keep our economy going in this new normal. The shop local initiatives are big. I mean, I've tried to promote that as much as I can, and the Premier certainly has. We have an Ontario Made promotion that's out there now, working with the Canadian Manufacturers and Exporters Organization. So if you're not familiar with that, make sure you contact my office, and we'll get you the information that you need there through the CME, and promoting our location and our lifestyle here has been encouraging as well. I know we've seen the downtown BIA in Belleville, for instance, reporting that pedestrian counts were double the average that they normally were on some weeks this year. And of course, we had that Prismatica event with all those lights spinning around on the street. That added some flair as well, while respecting distancing. And we do know that 58% of those businesses also reported a 15% increase in revenues, and that's a great sign. And of course, with Leslie on the line from Prince Edward County, we know about the traffic that Prince Edward County businesses saw this summer, and sometimes it was a little bit too much to handle, but I think it was a good sign that people were out there supporting Ontario Made and supporting our communities in this region, because quite honestly, we couldn't go anywhere else, and it was nice to see what's in our backyard. So I'll stop my comments at that. Obviously, we know there's still more to do. We're dealing with the stage 2 or phase 2 or wave 2, whatever you want to call it, of COVID-19, and we're trying to deal with that at the provincial level, while at the same time keeping as many businesses open as we can, particularly in regions like ours, which have seen very, very few cases. So my commitment to you is we're keeping our people here in Hastings and Prince Edward counties in the Bay of Quinte region safe, but we also want to keep our businesses open, and we've been very vocal about the fact that in areas that haven't been hard hit, that aren't in the hot spots, that we do need to ensure that our businesses are allowed to continue to function. So really interested in what you have to say today, and any advice or feedback that you can give me. We do have the Jobs and Recovery team at Queen's Park that is working daily to make sure, and we have some other programs as well, and maybe I can talk about those a little bit later on, but that's sort of the state of the union right now, Jill.
Thank you, Todd. And we spent about 45 minutes going through a roundtable approach here. Oh, there you are. That's awesome. So and for the sake of expediency, I will try to run through them quickly. I will also put these together in email, including the group that were involved in today's conversation. So if they feel that I haven't captured their needs sufficiently, they can expand on kind of the quick one-drop approach that we're going to take today. And we're not really expecting you to have answers to any of this, but I think from a community regional perspective, it gives you an idea of where we feel the provincial government has been successful and where we're finding the points of pain moving forward. And of course, none of us know what's going to happen in the next few months, but we just got off a call with the health unit, and we still hope that we're being safe and we're doing well here. So we shouldn't have to hopefully deal with another economic shutdown in our region. I think one of the biggest things that we heard was that communication has been a challenge. And if there was anything, and we heard it at the health unit side of things as well, that when issues come through, or when decisions are made or mandates are given, either through direction from the Ministry of Health, or the government decides that something has to be passed as a directive, the time frame in which that can happen is so short that pivot has become a pirouette now. We don't have time businesses don't have time. They adjust, and then they adjust again. So if there's any way that the government could see its way clear to maybe thinking more expansively when they say something has to change, what are the unintended consequences of some of those things? And is there a way to kind of soften that? The other thing we really see, there's a two-edged sword here with labor shortages, because not only are we having difficulty getting people back into the workforce, but then we're also seeing that public services such as healthcare and education are depleting the private sector when they try to expand their need. So the Board of Education requires more early childcare educators. That pulls people from the childcare sector who are being paid $18, $19 in the early childcare thing. Their skills are being expropriated, so to speak, to the school-age child, and this impacts childcare providers, which then in turn impacts employers whose employees can't go to work because they don't have childcare. So this is one serious issue. We see the same thing. Maxine has brought it up with PSWs, for example. There are bonuses from a larger organization if a PSW will join BON or something that's supported by the LIN. So we have to find a way to normalize or equalize that private versus public sector piece so that the private sector can continue to afford people that are also offering an essential and frontline service. We, of course, see the labor shortage in manufacturing. One of the challenges there that it probably has more to do with ODSP or an Ontario Works situation, or somebody who's taking advantage of the federal funding right now, which was exactly important at the time, but is there a way that we can move forward? The other thing we talked a little bit about was, when are we going to return to some sort of normal investment back into projects that were probably on the line in the beginning or getting ready to move forward? We have the Humane Society as one example, where they're practically shovel ready, but that investment has now been stalled. Admittedly, understandably, but are we going to see some of those projects move forward? And is there any timeline for that? The other issue was with regard to procurement and RFPs. And Sherry brought forward the situation, and Peter did as well. When it comes to local investment, we've seen a huge impact with Canada United trying to put money into supporting small and local business with regard to even personal protective equipment and funding for those things, but also with regard to promoting local. The procurement process, and I know that this isn't new, does give a distinct advantage to larger organizations that may not necessarily invest locally. And it is in danger of putting local business out of business. So that's probably a really big issue that kind of expands beyond the pandemic, that these businesses locally are already strained with labor shortages to begin with. And then when they have to compete with the larger businesses that come out of the area, that's a challenge. So if we could see some pressure from the government to stay local, that would be really appreciated. There's always the idea that, clarity between the role of the Ministry of Labor and Ministry of Health. That is an ongoing issue. Specifically, we talked about it a lot with regard to even some of our employers who are trying desperately to be compliant with the sudden changes in impact from the Ministry of Health. But then if employees or customers aren't feeling that a business has complied effectively, they may, whether they're right or wrong, the Ministry of Labor is required to come in, or the Ministry of Health is required to come in and investigate that. And when directives from the Ministry of Health come out with enforcement of fines up to, millions of dollars, depending on whether there's compliance. We've had really good relationships with our local ministry or local public health sector, and we know that they aren't interested in enforcing with fines. They want to educate first. But that kind of communication is what comes out. And because the Ministry of Labor is automatically required to respond to any complaint, those are challenges that our local businesses are really facing. And if there is any way that the Ministry of Labor could come forward and say, you know, a complaint with regard to PPE in the workplace or this or that may not move up the chain as quickly because we know that everybody's coping and that the health unit is kind of the first level of response in that regard. Go to your health unit before you go to the Ministry of Labor with something like that. And maybe I'm extrapolating a little bit further, but that's kind of where we sit. Again, I'll let Scott and Kim and Lori kind of add to that when I forward you this email. There are some training programs, pre-employment, some of those things that would be great to see expanded to private sector businesses that might be interesting to see. And we also are always concerned that we're being painted with the same brush as larger regions. And is there an opportunity for us to even sector more smallly? Like, for example, we talk about municipalities being able to initiate their own directives, talk about businesses being able to add their own stricter measures. But we're kind of looking, is there a way to expand beyond that? And some clarity around that, because what we tend to hear on the news is what's happening around those regions that are in the greatest lockdown. If somebody doesn't realize that we're not really in that stage 2 reformed version, then we had a question even this morning, are we allowed to have more than 6 people at a table? And the health unit confirmed that we're still allowed to be up to 10. So those kinds of messaging from the province seem to paint us all, and we hear those stories, we don't necessarily hear what's happening locally. So a little bit more extensive communication on what happens to other regions and what can happen in other regions. So I'm going to leave it there. I think, there is something about service delays by in-phone and in-person, and communication around that. Like, when will Services Ontario communicate that it's not by appointment only? I know online services are certainly effective, and that's great, but people are still kind of, especially if they're not used to doing that online, are still looking for those services to be offered in person again. So I'm going to just maybe ask Suzanne or Leslie if they have anything to add to this from their membership. We had our group here, but I'll let them speak now.
I can go first if you'd like. Hello, Todd. Nice to see you. Yeah, no, everybody here is pretty much in line with what's already been brought up. I think the biggest #1 issue that I'm hearing from businesses, and it really is all sizes and all sectors of businesses, is the lack of available workforce. It's very frustrating for so many businesses when we hear, the federal government continuing to talk about people that are out of work and can't find work and extending the benefits. That is in many ways putting these companies in direct competition with federal programs to try and recruit the people that they need. And I know this is not a provincial issue, but it certainly is something that I think Ontario has to do a really good job of getting this information out there. I know that there are parts of the country where this is not the case. And I know that these programs are not only welcomed, but very much needed. But I think in certain parts of Ontario, it is becoming a real problem. Businesses want to expand. They have customers. They have people that want their products and services, and they can't deliver. Over the summer, many of our restaurants, even though they were able to open up their in-dining facilities, chose to only keep their patios open. And it wasn't about health and safety. It was about the fact they did not have enough staff to actually open up all parts of their dining. And of course now with the colder season, they've had to do that, but they've had to do it with the minimal staff that they have. So there has to be a way to try and balance out these programs and still allow businesses to compete to get the staffing that they need. I know that Ontario, I just did a small increase in the minimum wage. I don't think it was felt by many businesses, as they have already had to offer above minimum wage to even low entry, minimal skill people, just to be able to compete with the other programs that are out there. So that would be my biggest thing. That's the big issue that I hear from, whether it's a small retailer in downtown Trenton, a construction company, somebody who's working in agriculture, or a manufacturers. Everybody is screaming for labor right now.
Okay, so Todd, it looks like Leslie has had to leave. I know she's been kind of jumping in and out. I'm guessing you're pretty familiar with everything. So any thoughts or comments? Like I say, we'll forward this to you. We don't expect you to have the answers now, but
Yeah, sure. So lots of good points there, and they are points that we've been discussing. On the communication issue, communication has been a tremendous challenge. There's no question about it. One of the great things is that the Premier has had that podium announcement every day. We call it the podium announcement at 1 o'clock or so in the afternoon, where he's been addressing the latest issues. Sometimes they're related to COVID-19. Most of the time they're related to COVID-19, but they are in regards to other things as well. That has been watched by so many people. So we've continued to do that. You'll recall the Prime Minister was doing it for a while, where he would come out of the cottage and make his announcement every day as well. And John Tory, the Mayor of Toronto, was doing it too, and some other mayors were doing it. But Premier Ford has chosen to continue to do that. I mean, we are responsible for healthcare, and there was a lot of concern about education as well back in August and September in particular. So the Minister of Health, Christine Elliott, has chosen, along with the Premier, to continue those kinds of updates every day and take some of these issues head on with the media. I know it can get a bit tiresome at times, because it seems like the media is continuously asking the same questions day after day, but that's a really great opportunity for the Premier and our government to get the message out. I certainly understand the confusion and with the different regions and the different hot spots. And I think, while it would have been much easier to just do a pan-Ontario approach to COVID-19 like we did in the first wave, from a messaging point of view, the last thing that we want to do is have a pan-Ontario approach now, given the fact that we do have all of these hotspots. But when you look at the numbers, I think today's number was 840 new cases or something like that. And over 350, I believe, are in that neighborhood. We're in Toronto, 200 were in Peel, and Ottawa was another hotspot. York Region was another hotspot. The last thing that we want to do, certainly the members of cabinet who are outside of those hotspots are saying, please, please, please don't include us in this modified stage 2. We want everybody to remain open. And so that does create confusion when you do that, just because you've kind of got all these different sets of rules. To the point about giving businesses advance warning, I totally appreciate that. And it's something that we've been trying hard to do. And I don't want to say anything derogatory about our public health officials and our doctors, but they are public health officials and doctors, and they don't necessarily understand how businesses need to be able to have the time to react. So we've been trying to do what we can throughout the pandemic to build in more time. But, when the doctors get the evidence back, they want to make that decision immediately. And they want the doctors and the Premier to go out immediately and make that announcement. We've been working very, very well with our public health officials throughout the pandemic, and there's been a lot of give and take on both sides, from the government side and the political side to the public health side. I think, and I think most people would probably agree that the priority has to be public health, but we've been fighting hard for the business community, because we need to have our essential services up and running. So I totally understand the issue on as much warning as possible, and we've been trying to live by that creed ourselves, and giving businesses the notice that they need. You raised a lot of issues there, Jill, and I can't remember them all. Was there one that maybe I didn't have a pen to jot them all down, but was there another one maybe that you would like an answer to? Certainly the job force one, and the fact that we need to get more people back to work is a huge issue. And the CERB ended in early October, and now we have 3 new federal benefits programs that are out there: the enhanced EI and the CRB, and the other one that's there as well, the caregiver benefit as well. I mean, my ministry has spent a lot of time talking about these, because we have to figure out how we treat these from a social services point of view. In the first round, you know, with the CERB, we treated it as if it was income, and we clawed back 50 cents on the dollar. This time around, we're going back to the way that we normally treat those types of benefits, and it's dollar for dollar, which, you know, hopefully will encourage people to get back to work. I know certainly there have been a lot of people that have said, well, if I can sit home and make my $2,000 for the summer and not have to go into a place where I might be exposed to COVID-19, then I'm going to do that. And human nature, I guess, would lead people to do that. You know, there was a lot of people though who did go back to work because we need them, and we just need more people to do that. But these benefits will run out eventually too, and they'll leave us with another decision to make from our perspective. But we were bracing for a large surge in the number of people that would be collecting social assistance in the province. But because of those federal benefits that have been available, both the CERB and now the new ones, we haven't seen that surge to social assistance yet. And we certainly at the provincial level hope that we don't. And that's why we're making all of these changes with Employment Ontario to try and free up more time for caseworkers to work with individuals to help get them back into jobs and get them back up on their feet. There are some great programs here in the Quinte region, like the HEAT program in Prince Edward County and the Elevate Plus program in the Belleville-Quinte West region that we've been able to promote at the provincial level. And we want more of those types of programs where caseworkers are hand-picking individuals off the social assistance caseloads, and we're getting them into a program like that where they get 3 weeks of soft skills in a classroom, 3 weeks on a shop floor, and then bam, you've got a bunch of new employees that are working for your organization. They're off the social assistance roles, they're back up on their feet, living independently. And of course, you know, we always say the best social program is a job, and we fully believe in that. And it gives individuals a real sense of purpose and a real sense of independence and freedom as well. So that's what we're trying to encourage. We're making a lot of changes in the social assistance department. I know you don't want to talk about social assistance, but it is a big piece to getting those million people that are on social assistance back into jobs, and I'm really focused on that. Was there anything else that you can pick from your list that you want me to address?
Well, I will send it all to you so you'll have an opportunity to kind of review it more carefully. I think there were two things that really look at us post-COVID, and that is the procurement process and the refunding process, or the funding that was already kind of earmarked for different programs, and whether or not when that wheel will start to turn again. So
yep, sure. So happy to address both of those things. Thanks for reminding me what they were. The infrastructure programs are continuing to roll out, and you know, what I can tell you is that the provincial government has nominated these programs already, and we're waiting for the federal government to green light them for them to go ahead. So some of them have. Neil will be on this afternoon, and you can ask him about that as well. But what I can tell you is that the provincial government has nominated many programs, many infrastructure projects in all of the various streams. We've seen a lot of them, you know, going ahead. We had nominated a number of them from the roads and bridges stream and others. The transit stream was another one. Now is the community center. So JC is on the line, so he would be interested in knowing about those projects. They're in the hands now of the federal government. They have to approve them, and then we'll announce them together jointly with the municipalities, the province, and the federal government. The other question was around procurement of goods, and yeah, this has been a long-standing problem. The big guys always seem to get the contracts, and you know, I was talking to a distiller down in Prince Edward County, or the distiller in Prince Edward County, so you can probably figure out who that is. But they had shifted, you know, their spirits over to hand sanitizer early in the pandemic, and a great local business, and they really did answer the call and stepped up and provided hand sanitizer to our first responders and our frontline healthcare workers and other organizations. And we did sign a contract with them in the initial round at the provincial level as well. But I know one of the frustrations that they were mentioning to me was, you know, we continue to apply, but the big guys are getting the contract. So it's one of the things that we continue to address on the procurement side. I would say that when it comes to leadership, no one has shown greater leadership and had his hands in this process more than the Premier has. He is very, very, very passionate about the procurement process for the PPE and other items as well, and was so frustrated with the way that that operated early on in the pandemic. And so I can tell you what he did. He's a black belt, Six Sigma, all that kind of stuff, and so he's very, very passionate about you know, efficiency and making sure that companies are operating as effectively and efficiently as they can, but that the procurement is also in place to make sure that the product is there when you need it. And certainly that's been a problem for many companies, but he's been very hands-on. He brought in Toyota, actually, and some of the officials from Toyota Motor Company out of Cambridge and Woodstock to work with us on our supply chain and the procurement of PPE to make it more efficient. It was a disaster in the early days of the pandemic, and together with Toyota and Ministry of Government and Consumer Services and Economic Development and Trade, they've been working together to refine that process. And now PPE is not an issue at all for public sector. But what we want to do is make sure that those small guys in our communities have the opportunity to bid on these contracts, and not just bid, but actually win these contracts. So it's something that they're really looking hard at. And I raised it with Vic Fideli the other day as something that we really need to put a push on and a priority on, not just for PPE, but other things as well.
And I think that's really the issue. It's not so much about PPE, it's about local suppliers with regard to busing, with regard to construction. Those are the ones who are feeling the pain when they have to compete with someone larger. So again, that will be kind of detailed. I see all of these smiling faces in front of me, and I wonder if you guys wouldn't mind if I took a quick picture and we can put that out there. So everybody look at your camera. We'll take a quick picture. 1, 2, 3. Great. And so thank you very much. We're at 11:39. So we knew we had you till about 11:40, I think. So if you're good, we're good. Thanks again to everyone for joining us today. Hopefully we'll see you in about an hour with Neil Ellis's conversation. Again, that will start with a roundtable discussion, and then Neil will be joining us about 1:15. So thank you so much, Minister Smith, for joining us. Thank you, David, for being here as well. And to all of you who took the time today to join us during Small Business Week on behalf of the City of Belleville, the Belleville Chamber of Commerce, Quinte West Chamber of Commerce, and the Prince Edward County Chamber of Commerce, I thank you.
Thanks, Jill.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.